Hi, I'm Amy Edwards, and welcome to the Edwards Table. This podcast is all about real conversations, the kind that come from life, love, family, friendship, and all the messy, beautiful parts in between. I started this show because I believe in redemption stories and in sitting down together to talk about the things that shape us, heal us, and sometimes just make us laugh. So grab a seat, take a breath, and join me, because there's always room for you here at the Edwards Table. Well, hey y'all, and welcome to the Edwards Table podcast. My name is Amy Edwards, and I am your host. I am super excited for you all to be here this week for this episode. It's hard to believe we're already a few weeks, if you're listening in real time, into the new year. And if you've been joining us, I really appreciate it. You've definitely been listening in as I don't know, just kind of done a brain dump every week since the new year started, kind of about, how I'm trying to love myself better, like really falling in love with the lady that I see in the mirror, which is always my hope for anyone I know, and just the 3 different ways that I've been doing that. And then this week, I had this, I just had this thought as I was reading. Actually, over the course of the past several days, I've been reading about the story of Joseph. And for those of you who don't know this story, I'm sure you've probably heard of like Joseph and the Technicolor Coat, or that's like a Broadway musical. And back in I think it was the 70s, maybe maybe 80s, I don't know, it doesn't matter. But anyway, just know that it tells a Hollywood version of said story. But I was thinking about it today, and especially because, as the story goes, there was Joseph, and his dad, he was actually part of a blended family. And so his dad was married and had sons, and then married to another lady and had 2 more sons. I think that's how it goes, is how the moms break out. But all of the boys have the same dad, okay? That I know for a fact. And so as the story goes, Joseph had this dream, and he tells it to his brothers, and this is before I think the younger one, there's one younger than Joseph, and he wasn't around at this time. But so the brothers got really jealous of him, and initially they were going to kill him. And one of them was in the mix. His name's Reuben, and Reuben's like, y'all, we really should not do this. Let's sell him, right? So back in the day, that wasn't an uncommon practice. And so it's like they make it all look like he's been attacked by a wild animal, and he's got this beautiful coat, right, that his dad had given him. And that was a special gift that none of the other brothers had gotten but him. And the why behind that, from what I read and what I understand, is that his dad was truly in love with his mom. And it was just, he was so in love with his son. Like he really admired and adored his son. And so he gave him special treatment. Not saying that's right or wrong, but that was customary also typically for the oldest son to get this kind of a treatment, right? So anyway, his brothers make this plot to get rid of him, and so they find this group that are traveling and sell him into slavery, and then take his coat, and they put like animal blood on it to make it look like he had been attacked and killed, and they bring it back to their dad, and like, oh my God, he died. His dad was devastated. It was like, just wrecked him. And so what happened was he got sold over to the Egyptians. So he's a Hebrew dude. He got sold over to the Egyptians. And there's a whole lot that goes on, okay, in his life. I mean, he's years in Egypt, winds up making it, he gets imprisoned, helps some fellas in prison, by helping like talk through what their dreams meant, help talk through the Egyptian, I just lost what they're called, Pharaoh, good grief, at the time, like help him talk through his dreams and whatever. And so he gets appointed to this very high ranking place. So it would be like here, if we were talking in the United States, we have a president and vice president. He'd be like the vice president, right? So there's president and vice president. But he's like the number 2 guy in command. And so the Pharaoh has a set of dreams, and is really, reaching out to all of the people in the land, trying to figure out what these dreams meant. And as God does, he revealed it to Joseph, and Joseph was able to go and tell the Pharaoh what his dreams meant. And in that, what it did was it set up Egypt for knowing that they were going to have 7 years of bountiful harvest. So all of their crops and animals and everything was going to be super bountiful for 7 years. And then the next 7 years was going to be this horrific drought. And with that came no crops, animals would die and not be able to reproduce and things like that. So he made the recommendation, because God gave him this idea, like to make the recommendation for the 7 years, store up as much as we can, and then we'll be the only ones around in this land that will have food. And not only will we be able to feed our people, but we'll be able to feed other people, other nations and whatnot. So when the 7 years were over for all the bounty, and then the famine came. And so Joseph's brothers told their dad, of course, talk was all the thing then, and they had found out, there's if we go to the Pharaoh over in Egypt, we can buy food from them. And so they all got together, the 10 of them, leaving the baby behind, and they went to Egypt. Now remember, Joseph has been in Egypt forever and ever. He's been there since he was young, and they're, I think, and please don't quote me, I am not a Bible scholar, but I think if I remember correctly, he was like in his maybe around 40 when they see him the next time. So they come to him, and neither knowing the other were who they were in the moment, right? So they come, and he recognizes them, but they don't recognize him. And of course, he is not speaking his native tongue, because he's been in Egypt all these years. And so he has an interpreter, and the interpreter is going back and forth, with the brothers and whatnot. And he kind of plays with them a little bit, knowing that they have a younger brother at home who is his brother, like that's his natural brother. And so he imprisons one of the brothers or two, one, and then sends them back home and says, you're not getting anything else until you bring the younger one. Well, in the meantime, he has his officials sneak their silver back into their bags, and they get back on the road and realize that they make it home with their silver that they had used to buy their grain with. And they were horrified. They were so scared they were going to die. He was going to come after them, whatever, right? And so as the drama unfolds, they run out of their food again, and they tell their father, they're like, Dad, we have to take the baby with us, Benjamin. We've got to take him with us. And he's like, you will send me to my grave if you take my baby son. And so finally they convince their father. He sends the original silver he had sent with him, and then doubles that and sends it with all kinds of gifts and things like that, like hopeful, right, that his sons would be safe. And so they come back, and again, Joseph, and you can't blame him. I mean, galley dog it, his brothers were horrible to him. So he does get to have a little bit of fun, but it's also gut-wrenching for him. So like he uses the interpreter, he sees Benjamin, and it just is overcome with just emotion. And so he excuses himself quickly, and it says that he goes and weeps. Here in the United States, we're not used to necessarily seeing men do that. It's not culturally something that you see men out weeping in front of other people. That's just not a normal behavior that we see here in the U.S., whereas in other cultures it is more common. And I just think about, I think about that in my situation, and John's not a big crying guy, but there are times where he gets very sad or overwrought with emotion, and he will cry. And I mean, it wrecks me. Like, it wrecks me to see a man cry. And so I can only imagine. I mean, granted, it was something culturally that was done, but also weeping is not like the sniffles. Weeping is out loud and emotionally charged tears. So there's a lot coming out, not just tears running down your face. And so as the story continues, he can't keep it in anymore, and he finally reveals who he is to his brothers. And it's just a beautiful scene where he has them dine at his table, and he puts them in birth order reversed so that the youngest is sitting next to him, and he gives him 5 times the portion he gives to them. And there's a lot of significance and semblance, and I'm not trying to go into a whole lesson to teach you all of that. But what really spoke to me today, just thinking about coming to that place in the story, right? I've been reading the whole story, and now I'm to that place. And I don't know, I was thinking about, all that Joseph had endured for so many years. And there's so much in there. Like, got accused of some craziness with this woman who was the Pharaoh's wife. I mean, like, it's a whole thing. There's a whole thing going on there. And then was put into prison. He lived in a dungeon, was in there and tried to help the Pharaoh's cupbearer, and I can't think of the other title of the other, baker. And they had dreams, and he interpreted those for them. And, what he said, God told him, came true. And he was supposed to be remembered and be brought out of jail, but the cupbearer didn't remember him until a long time later. And so I just thought about, God, all of that, and then to be ripped away from your family at a young age, and to be then thrust into a totally different world. I mean, you're totally different language and culture, food, smells, sounds, people, all the things. And yet he, 1, held on to his faith. And then 2, the way that he handled his brothers, to me, I mean, like I said, he messed with them a little bit. But also I felt that justified, albeit maybe not, but in my world, yes, it's justified behavior, right? But how gracious he was. In turn, what happens because of how gracious and how much he meant to the Egyptian Pharaoh, Pharaoh's like, you just tell your daddy and all of his household, leave everything where they are and just come here into Egypt, and I will give him and his whole household, his children, his grandchildren, wives, all of the people, I'm going to give them the best of the best land, the best animals, the best food, choice, everything. And I don't know, not every time in difficult situations do we experience that kind of bounty in terms of worldly goods, right? Worldly things per se. And even through the really hard times, I have found that just crazy things align, or people who are really good for me in the time and the season I am in my life will show up at just the right time, in just the right circumstance, offering me just the right hope or motivation, or, sometimes things or whatever it may be. And I don't know, I really admire Joseph and how kind he was and how thoughtful he was, how steadfast he was in his faith, and being a brother. So he's the oldest of his 2 brothers from the same mommy, but is the second youngest of the whole family. So I can't even imagine what that looked like, and to be that humble and that gracious to them after they sold him into slavery. I don't know, it really hit me, I think, today, because, in life outside of podcasting, right? I currently have a business with John, and we are a fledgling business. So like we literally just celebrated our first official birthday in December, really 1st of January is when we like really launched out there. I mean, we were on paper in 2024, but like we weren't really out there launching things, website, all the goodies there on social media. And just the willingness to hang in there. I don't know if any of you listening have ever been or are currently entrepreneurs, but starting your own company is never a small feat. And this isn't the first one we've done. We've actually had a couple of different ones in terms of companies per se, not like this specific company. So like what we do now is very similar to what we did back in the day when we lost everything. And instead of building new homes, not that we can't, but we're not buying property or lots and building brand new homes unless we are contracted. Like somebody comes and hires us, like they've bought land and then they want us to come build their custom home. We do that. But like back in the day in 08, 09, we would buy lots in a subdivision and we would be one of the builders in the subdivision. And we made a great run at it, you know, and then 08, 09 hit and we lost everything. So if you haven't heard that story, you can click back over to season 1 and listen to all of the fun that we went through there. But like, I think about it and it's the day in, day out grind of things. And it's only been a year. You know, I'm thinking about Joseph and I'm thinking, okay, how many years he lived as a higher ranking official and how long it took for his brothers, but then what all had to happen in order for their paths to cross in the way that they crossed. It's just got God's fingerprints all over it, right? Like that's not luck and it's not chance. I don't believe in any of that. And if you do, I'm not trying to step on toes, but me personally, I just believe that's God's way of putting all kinds of dots, if you will, in our life. And then depending on the choices that we make, those dots start getting connected. And it's just really cool to be able to go back and see. And I think the tricky part is when you're in the mix of it, it's really sometimes hard to keep your chin up and keep your head on straight and to keep your emotions at bay where you're not getting all emotionally charged and frustrated, because if you're like us, I mean, we went through last year, first year of our business, and wouldn't you know it, inflation is really high, spending is really low. Whenever the government shuts down, people in our industry get hit by that because folks aren't wanting to spend money when they don't know when they're going to go back to work. Or because people see that that's happening, and maybe it doesn't affect them directly because they're not part of our government workforce, but they work for other entities, and so they're not going to spend money. So pretty much nobody wanted to spend money, and those that did are the ones who have like saved and had it on their plan that this was the year they were doing this project or whatever the case may be. And so John and I went through a time of literally every single every single estimate that we put out for people that were requesting work was a no. Now, my rule of thumb in sales is for every 10 asks, you get 9 no's and 1 yes. Depending on what you're selling, depending on how you're selling and that kind of a thing. But that's usually a pretty good rule of thumb. And it doesn't come like 1 through 9 and then 10 is a yes, or 1 is a yes and 2 through 10 is a no. It comes as it will. But what we had was about 5 months of all no's or nothing, like nothing, which was very unusual for us. And so even though we knew we were doing what we were meant to be doing, praying about it, talking very openly with one another, keeping those lines of communication open, reality is we still had to show up every day. We still had to say yes every day. We still had to go beat the streets and no door knocking. We don't do that. Thankfully with our company, we don't have to. But like reaching out to people and asking folks, hey, do you know anybody else that we could reach out to or that might be interested or whatever the case may be. Definitely not a natural place for either John or I. I think because sales for both of us is a little awkward, a little bit hard. Now, I say that, but then also if I believe in what I'm having to sell, it's much easier, right, for me to go and do it, albeit I don't enjoy doing the sales part. But I love what we do as a company. So that made it a little bit easier. But there were days in those months where, it was John having to pick me up, and not literally, because no, but also from an emotional standpoint of like, okay, Amy, what are you working on today? What's something, that we can both do together to make sure that social media is out, or we update the website, or there's someone we can call, or whatever the case may be. And then there were some days where it would be me encouraging him because, it was showing up to another appointment for another person only to hear that another no. Or he would show up and, a good example would be he would show up to a person's home and they would want to do an enclosed patio area, which is very popular here in Texas to have back patios. And then for some people to then enclose it, right? Make it a screened-in porch or make it a permanent fixture of the house. And for instance, he went to this one home and, average sized home and neighborhood. So, here our median, I think, is around 450, 430. Don't quote me. He could tell you he's not here. So, average size home, probably about 2,500 square feet. They're wanting to bring in a 30 by 40 foot patio and make it permanent. So brick it, drywall, frame, drywall, paint, put windows in and whatever else. And this sweet fella told John that he was expecting to spend $10,000. And John said, listen, I appreciate that that's what you want to spend, but reality is with what you're asking, we do things to building code. And so that means we have to pour either over the patio to make a new slab. So we've got to put, rebar down and all this stuff to make it a firm foundation, or we have to tear it out and start fresh. We can't even do that part for $10,000. Like, concrete is not that cheap, sir. And certainly not for a 30 by 40, I think I said, square space or rectangle. Look it, don't be coming at me with the geometry, okay? We've already talked about I'm not a math girl. But all this to say, very unrealistic expectations by a lot of people that were like, okay, and we appreciate that you've asked us out, but also it costs us time, it costs us gas, it costs us morale. Like, there's a lot that goes with all of that, right? And so for 5 months, pretty much, we had all no's. And so we just kept on, every day, trying one more day. Let's try it. And to the point where I had put my resume out, and I think it's starting in the early summer, and for months, literally every day, I would sit down and half my day would be working on getting my resume out, reaching out to people, making connections with folks, doing all of those things. And what I found was not only was I getting no's with work, I was getting no's with job applications and reaching out to people as well. So for every day, I got at least one no for my resume. Some days I would get 5 no's. And I will have to be very honest. I am 51 years old. I have worked in leadership roles for majority of my career. Like, I have done it for the most of my career, depending on what aspect of where I was working or whatever. And to be told no that many times, and please also understand, I wasn't looking just for management roles. I was looking at like $15 an hour technical writing roles, you name it. Being an admin assistant, anything. anything. And I was overqualified, or they'd already filled the position, or they weren't going to spend the money and they decided to pull the job application from the website or whatever. But literally it was no. It was no, every day no. And finally one day, John and I got up one morning and both of us were just like tired and feeling really heavy about the day and what was going on or whatever. And I was exceptionally stressed out because I am very much a money person when it comes to paying attention to kind of where we are and kind of where our finances are and looking at how we're doing for the quarter and what we need to have coming in order to get bills paid and whatever. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, Lord, I literally don't know how we're going to do this next month. And we need something to hit. It doesn't have to obviously be huge, albeit we had some really big estimates out there for folks, and it would have been amazing to be able to win some of those jobs, but we just needed something. And finally, it took what felt like forever. And finally, in the fall is when we had a yes in the summer, which we did work, but we also pushed the payment schedule out into the fall, thinking when we said yes to that, it was going to be fine. And it wound up being fine. But also, in the moment, it was rather nerve-wracking. And so I was just thinking about that, how it was a taste of what John and I went through all those years ago when our business was trounced by the economy and when we lost everything. And I think sometimes, in our lives, we have those moments where we've got to go back to maybe an old experience, if you will, and have a taste of it again. And I don't think that, in my personal opinion anyway, of where we are in our marriage and kind of where we are in our lives and whatnot, for John and I, really and truly, I think it's preparing us for what's coming next. And in fact, I know that for a fact, just seeing, the opportunities that have come to be in December and the first of this year. It's been insane in a great way. But I think sometimes it's just God being such a loving and gentle fella or God, I shouldn't say fella, albeit he has been a fella too. But he's so loving and so gentle with us when it comes to trying to teach us our lessons. Not to say sometimes that he'll let some wild stuff go, but I think when he was showing us these things as a very clear reminder that we don't ever want to go back to that. And quite frankly, if we rely completely on him, we don't ever have to go back to that per se, of the nervousness and the overwhelm and the anxiousness and all of that. We don't ever have to go back to that. Now, it's not to say we won't go through hard times. Please don't ever hear me say that, because that's not reality. But it is reality to say that by believing in God and having a relationship with him, a regular relationship, just like I have with John, day in, day out, showing up every day, reading my Bible, praying, all of these things, and truly getting to know God more and allowing him to just be my dad. That's really what it is, right? And it allows for these beautiful moments to reveal themselves through sometimes hard things, sometimes really good stuff too. We've had some crazy yeses in the past 2 months where it's been like, are you kidding me right now? Some of the people that have said yes, we for sure thought, there's no way we're gonna get a guess on this one. And then a month or two would go by, and out of the blue, the phone would ring, and it would be somebody that we already had chalked up to it's going to be a no because it's been a couple months or whatever. It's funny how those kinds of things work out, but also it's so beautiful because it's at the right time with the right people in the right situation, right circumstance. And it's for us to learn. It's for us to be blessed. It's for us to be refined. It's for us to gain so many good things being God's children. It's such a beautiful thing. Even though sometimes discipline is not fun, I'm not going to lie. I really like to learn the lesson the first run of this situation, right? I don't want to learn it 3 more times. I don't want to have to get another situation 3 times in order to, or however many times. But I am hard-headed, I'm not going to lie. John's hard-headed. We're kind of 2 mules, if you will. We both are. And so there are times where, unfortunately, or fortunately, we do have to learn lessons more than once, and more than twice, sometimes more than 3 or 4 times. But just as far as our business is concerned, I thought about that and kind of paralleled that with Joseph's story of our time, like I said, is so minimal compared to his. And we've had good times in the midst of the wild and the crazy. But I don't know, it just, I'm always awed when I see different people who have stories in the Bible, and his is one that always intrigues me because I just don't know me personally. Well, I do know me personally, and I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, I would not be your girl who would be cool with her, 10 brothers selling her into slavery only to then welcome them to my royal table, and give them all of the good things. But I think the other thing that story definitely gives me is hope in personal relationships with family. And I know, like I said, if you've been listening along, you've heard some messy stuff. I have a lot of messy in my family. And through the messy, and through therapy and mentorship and some wise people who love the Lord in my life, I have become a woman that is proud of herself for learning and growing through some really rotten stuff, but also a woman who has a lot of work still to be done. I feel like I will live like so many years on this planet because God's like, girl, we still got so much work to do with you. You're going to be here a hot second. So yeah, I don't know, but I did think about that, and I thought how much, like I said, I admire Joseph for his willingness to say yes to his brothers and just his tender heart for them, even though they had so mistreated him. And it's so beautiful, the verse that it speaks about this. It says that he told his brothers not to worry, that this was God's will for his life. This was what needed to happen in order for him to be able to help not only the Egyptian people, but their people as well, right? So he had a plan and was able to execute that plan to reap all of that harvest and be able to feed people for 7 years off of that bounty, and not just the people that lived in their country that he was in Egypt, but then outside of that, all the surrounding countries could come and buy food there. And so I don't know, I really respect and admire anyone who can go through those kinds of tumultuous seasons of life and years of life that are just really hard, and yet have such a beautiful outlook and a beautiful perspective of what truly is important in those moments. And I think it speaks to me in other facets of my life. Please understand, yes, I tell y'all a lot, but I don't tell you everything that goes on in my life. I don't. Just know that there are things I hold dear and close to me. But the big stuff that I know is meant to be shared out there comes to you all. So there are things that I wrestle with still, and that story just spoke to that too, of hanging in there and having the right perspective, attitude, language, because I can tell y'all I can get pretty crass pretty quick when I get angry. I am very strong with the J in my soul, if you will. I'm very much about justice for people I care about. And so I can be quick-tempered. I can get angry fast if someone I love and care about is being mistreated, or if someone I love or care about is acting like a horse's back end. That will fire me up equally as fast. And so I try to, because of that, look to obviously people of the Bible, it's great to read their stories, but then also surround myself with people in my life who actually bring life into me and pour into me, help stretch me and make me a better woman and a better wife and a better mom and a better friend. And so I'm very thankful for that. I'm so appreciative of community, even though I don't love doing that kind of community all the time because I am introverted, so I really don't enjoy that all the time. But that's a big piece of why I'm here with you all week in, week out, is to offer community for any of you out there who maybe don't have people that are pouring into you. Maybe you don't have a place where you can go and share your heart, or maybe you don't have a place where you feel that you're accepted completely for who you are and where you are right now. That's the hope of the Edwards table, is everyone has a seat on purpose. It doesn't mean that I necessarily agree with you or you are going to agree with me. But what it does mean is that we can hold space together and be able to have a community where we're poured into and we're loved on, but we're also refined and we're stretched into the people that we're intended to be. So, y'all, it's kind of a short one this week. I didn't drone on. I feel like last week I kind of droned on a bit. But that was really, really on my heart today. And I just wanted to share that with you all as we're kind of winding down. If you're going week to week, this is going to come out the week, the ending of January. And really quick, before I close out for today, I did want to tell you guys that in the upcoming months, I've got some really exciting stuff that I'm going to be launching and sharing. So if you've been on the past few weeks, you've heard and seen maybe that I've been putting some recipes out. I've got another couple coming of some bread recipes I was telling y'all about last week. But just be on the lookout. Make sure you're following us on social media. I've got us all set up on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok. TikTok is kind of where I'm silly. There's a little serious stuff in there, but I mean, it's really more silly or just like quick clips and thoughts and just, I don't even know. Y'all, look at, I'm 51 and I'm just now learning TikTok. Okay, so let's all calm down. There's not, hopefully, a very high expectation for me. Instagram, I'm a little bit better. I've been there. I've been doing things on Instagram, but definitely make sure you follow us there. And then also, if you do watch on YouTube, then you'll see that's where the recipes are held. And every time I'll post one there, I'll put it all over social media, link it so that you can easily click on it and whatnot. So if you do want to jump over to the kitchen with me sometime, I mean, that's where I am right now. I would love to have you come over there. Really and truly just sharing recipes that have a lot to do with my story, either because it's someone I love or it's something I've learned to do. I love being in the kitchen. I love having y'all here with me, and that's why I've bumped over here from the table for a little bit. But yeah, so in the meantime, I hope each of you has an amazing rest of your week, or whenever you're listening to this. I hope you have an incredible day. And always remember, you have got a seat right here at this Edwards table. So make sure you stop by and come on and take a listen every week. Until next time, y'all, I'll see ya.